Yeah. We made it. Oh, this camera is way too close to my face. Okay. Not really, not very well. Can you hear? I can't hear you at all.
There we go. Now can you hear us?
Yes. What is that device?
It's a Bluetooth speaker.
A what?
So a Bluetooth speaker.
Oh, got it, got it, got it, got it. Okay.
Yeah. So
Hi, good morning.
that's why you couldn't hear us. But yeah. So oh my God, my dog decides to chew her bone every time we do this. I don't know if you can
My
hear her.
neighbor decides to yell at her child every time we do this, so it's okay. If you hear obscenities in the background, I'm sorry.
Life goes on.
So we thought that today we would talk a little bit about EMDR therapy, but we thought it'd be fun to just like get into the question of if a relationship ends sooner than expected, is it considered a failure?
I love this question because I struggle with it too. Like, oh, what did I fail? What did I do to end this relationship? And you know, it's funny. In meditation this week, I kept hearing, you're not responsible for somebody else's behavior. And for me, I had a guy I used to date, I don't know, a long time ago. And he was like, you had me in such a bad place, and you're the reason I yelled and kicked in the bathroom door. And for a while, in like my codependent state, and other things like this happened,
Yeah.
it's all blamed on me.
Right.
For a while, I was like, it is my fault because I come from that childhood of having to anticipate people, having to meet their needs because I never know what kind of volatile thing is going to happen, who's going to yell. And so I take too much blame.
Yeah.
And therefore thought I was the problem. I failed. And so, yeah, I understand what you're saying. And that, again, like, it's something I work through. But in the end, some people will be like, it ended because, one of my friends, it ended because she wants more kids and I don't. And I'm like, yeah, I mean, that's a reason to end things. But this was the reason we have, like, physically, instead of the relationship had come to a point where we learned as much as we needed to from a spiritual perspective, and then we just let it go, and that's really hard too. I mean, it's
Totally.
not easy, but
And I think
yeah.
I think we'll like can get into how therapy and MDR therapy would apply to this scenario specifically. And I think that if that's cool, that's how we'll talk about it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I figured I had a feeling that you would be able to relate to this question just like we can.
Yeah.
And, I think people pleasing tendencies contribute to feeling like it was a failure instead of feeling like relationships are teachers and all relationships are lessons, and some are for a time and some are for a lifetime, you know? So, yeah, I love that you said that, like, you just didn't want the same things, and that's what ended up being the consensus, which I think is a super healthy way to think about it. As opposed to making each other bad and wrong, you realize that you just don't want the same things. You just discontinue to value the same things in life, and that's okay.
And that to try to stay in that kind of relationship will then hold back your growth, which is another thing that's hard to accept.
Yeah, and there's two, right? Like if you when you get together, you are attracted to each other because of the lessons that you have to learn from each other. And you either continue to evolve together and commit to that relationship every single day, or you grow apart.
Yeah. I could go so woo on this, but I want to hear Holly tell us
What she has to say too.
Yeah, give us very practical information about EMDR and how to deal with it.
The loss of a relationship, or when it doesn't work, it's a grief, and so we're going to go through stages. And I think we're going to be angry. because it didn't work out. It wasn't what we thought it was going to be. And so I think we almost, that anger gives us that energy to leave if it's necessary, if you've tried everything you can. And then to process that. And it takes time. It just doesn't happen overnight, no matter how long the relationship. You had high hopes for it.
Yeah. What do you think? I like that because that's so true because you are grieving. It is a loss.
Yeah.
If you are having a healthy relationship, you're usually planning a future together, right?
Yeah.
And I'm usually planning my own version of the future, and they're planning their version of the future. And so a lot of times it is grieving the loss of what you thought was going to be. And that can leave you with some feelings of anger and sadness and grief, totally. So, what do you think? I want to ask both of you this. What do you think about contact after you break up? Like, what's healthy? Like, what if
Okay.
they want to be friends
Do
immediately?
you want to lead with this, Holly, or you want me to lead
Go
with
ahead.
this? Okay. Here's my deal. There's a reason why you guys were together. There were good times there, right?
Absolutely.
However, when we break up, I need no contact for several months so that I can return to my life to see, like, okay, it really was better that I am not there. I still love that we laughed about all these things. So let me see if this person wants to continue to be platonic. And then being really respectful if the other person's in another relationship typically will. I'm friends with most of my exes. Typically, we'll step back when they're in a relationship and be like, okay, like we don't want to do anything weird. So
Yeah.
that is what I think is you can be friends but I think it's with strong boundaries because I have a couple of exes I can't even be friends with because they just are constantly sucking my energy. And the minute I try to be friends with them, they start asking me for things. And I'm like, this is not a friendship. So I think it just depends, is this person, am I in a place where I don't want to be with this person anymore? And I don't hate them. Also, like if I'm still like, F that guy, then it's not friendship time. I have to be, in this place where I've let it all go. And that's how I feel about it. I do think there's a reason why we came together. I do think that maybe the relationship romantically is over, or we don't talk to that person very much, but we can call them and be like, oh my gosh, I saw this thing, totally reminded me of you. Haha, remember when that happened? And that's just like a friendship. No, I don't know. You tell me, Holly, what do you think?
I've had both. But absolutely agree with you. Need that space away. And I was married for 25 years, and I just recently went through a breakup about it's coming up on a year, and we really didn't have good communication skills because he didn't want to listen to anything. He's really a stuck person, and if I would try to talk to him or try to be myself around him, he was very threatened by that for whatever reason.
Yeah.
After the breakup, he wanted to, keep in contact and go on dates, and immediately after,
Yeah.
and I had to keep saying no, no, and then I finally just had to stop the communication with him because
And that's one thing oh, sorry, go ahead, Holly. I didn't
it
hear.
was draining to me because it
Yeah.
was hard to leave. All of that was hard to leave, and I'm not just going to get back on and pretend like we're just going to pick up where we left off.
Yeah. I think it's important to have really clear boundaries with breakups, especially if you want to salvage a friendship.
Yeah.
Because there are hurt feelings. That is why you're separating, and hopefully the separation happens before things get nasty. I think that that's like a being in this lifetime. It's like when it's done, recognizing that it's done instead of like gripping harder and trying to force something that's just no longer for you.
Oh my God, that's like my forte. No, recently it's gotten better. It's gotten better, but I think that too, one mistake I've made, and I know a lot of my friends make, but obviously a lot of people have to experience their own mistakes, right? So one mistake I make is justifying that I'm like, no, I'm ready to be friends again. And that's one thing, like for me, that I'm like, oh no, it's okay. We can be in the friend zone, but some of these I just feel myself getting sucked back in to my fantasy of what it could have been.
Yeah, and if one person isn't wanting to end the relationship and one person is, I especially think that scenario requires some serious space and separation. And I think that that's healthy.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. It's this is such a tough subject, right? Because we can talk about it, but it's it's so much harder to do than to talk about.
Also, their history,
Yeah.
if they're hopping from one relationship to the other, which was this guy's pattern. Like he was
Same as,
within
yeah.
a couple months.
Yeah.
That's his kids expressed to my kids that was what he, that was his pattern.
But I
Yes.
do believe we're attracted to people that have that same vibration. So the things that we hate about someone is typically something we have to look at ourselves. So for me, I was doing the same different relationship thing to make myself feel better. And I didn't like that he did it. And I was like, oh, maybe I need to work on myself, make sure I'm not doing that. And then it was very difficult to like man detox, is what I call it. And it's hard to man detox because it is an addiction, that dopamine hit
Totally.
in the apps. When someone likes you, when you get a message on Bumble or whatever, this is all dopamine hit. So I knew I would legitimately have withdrawals,
Yeah.
and I did. But I just had to get through them. This was a while ago. And then now I'm not like, ew, I go from relationship to relationship for validation. Now I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
I detox. I'm good now.
Yeah. I think you're saying it can, totally can be difficult. And why make it harder by continuing to communicate with each other when you're not in a healthy space yourself around the relationship, like you said? Like, I'm still having thoughts of like, F you. Probably isn't good to like maintain that for a second. I think like a good healthy couple of months and maybe even 6 months, personal, right? For everyone, it's a little
Yeah.
different. We all kind of find our homeostasis at different rates and whatnot, and that depends on the trauma that was experienced in the relationship, if there was trauma or if it ended amicably. So,
Yeah. Well, and one other thing, speaking of no contact, is social media. And I find a lot of my friends are like, well, I'm still following them and look what they're doing. Like, why are you following them? Like, you can, but I also understand that kind of drama is like, I don't want to block them. It's going to cause some like temper tantrum issues. So, what I always recommend is like, what I do is just hide, silence them
yeah,
completely. So they don't know that I don't want to see
yeah,
them.
Yeah, I
I
made
think,
one.
what's that, Holly?
I made, I didn't realize you didn't have to block because I was starting to look at what was he doing. He's playing songs like "Look What That Woman Did to Me," and it just wasn't good for me or him. And so, and then he came back around and wanted me to friend him again. And I thought, after a while, that's fine. I don't really post things that are personal in my life,
yeah.
like relationships.
Yeah, I heard something really interesting on a podcast the other day, and he was saying that like it's a form of emotional abuse to yourself to not allow yourself the space.
Thank you, Steve or David. Yeah, it is. That makes sense. And there's another thing I talked about too, or that I heard before too, is the betrayal of yourself in a relationship, meaning like you are trying to please the other person. That betrayal ends up being the most painful betrayal because you're betraying yourself, which I think is we're kind of saying the same
Yeah,
thing. Like if I'm in my person as myself, grounded, and something doesn't work out relationship wise, I'm more like, I know who I am. I didn't act like someone else. They didn't like who I am currently, and that's fine. And I feel like that is even less painful because I didn't betray myself and be like, oh, I'm just gonna do what this guy wants, and then we break up and like, oh my gosh, I don't know who I am. And I think that also like is in line with what you were talking about, Marissa.
absolutely. And also the people pleasing. It comes back to that people pleasing survival mechanism, right? Of
Yeah.
like um, learning to be okay being the villain in someone else's story. And letting them make you the villain, while also recognizing that you're standing in your
Yeah.
truth, and that your truth and being true and authentic to you is more important than trying to make somebody see you as something else.
Yeah, and that I live right now in like a small town, and people all know each other. A lot of people know each other. So there's a lot of, I mean, you live in a town, there's going to be people that don't like you. There's one guy that doesn't like me, and he doesn't even know me. I'm like, okay, whatever. But that's what it is here is I wanted to defend myself. I mean, people aren't mean to my face, but I know there's like, of course, with anywhere, like talking crap behind people's back. But anyway, it's that instead of defending myself, carrying myself with integrity. So everyone can just see who I am instead of me having to say things which would be the same level as someone else who's talking crap about me. So it really is, and you know, getting divorced, if anyone has been through a nasty divorce with children, they know the parent will talk crap about the other parent. And I defended myself at first, which I think in a way maybe was a mistake. I don't know. We'll see. But now it's like I'm just going to be who I am. And hopefully my daughter will see that I am here for her and I am trying my best to do what's best for her. But, you know, it's tricky to be the villain.
Yeah.
It is.
What do you think, Holly? Holly, chime in. Tell us ways to fix it.
Oh, okay. I'll give you some magic tricks.
Okay. Where's your wand?
Time is a good thing. And to be able to sit alone and not blame and shame them or yourself.
Yeah.
Well, just because something doesn't work out, what does it mean? Not everybody's supposed to be in your life forever. I mean, I have friends from elementary school. I have new friends. I mean, I think social connection is really important, especially if it helps them and you grow.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. And I think also, oh,
if the
sorry,
people
go ahead.
are where they want to be, you can't force them out of that, nor would would you want to do that, change them.
Yeah.
You
What's
have
the point?
to accept that and start looking at what did I benefit and how did they benefit from me?
Yeah.
What were the benefits of that relationship?
Well, and for me too, like what didn't I like about myself in that relationship? Like, how did I act in that relationship that I wish I wouldn't have? You know, was I snappy? For me, sometimes it can be very snappy, especially in early mornings. Like, let's be honest. I need a full hour of meditation before I want to talk to anybody. And that's one thing that I was like, I didn't like this. I'm going to work on myself. So, and I did read something somewhere that was like, you have your own toxic traits. We really like to say how awful the other person is, but you know, we all have our own toxic traits. So for me, reflecting on what did I do and how can I be a better person in the next relationship, that helps me a lot. But I do go through, let me ask you about this, Holly. I usually go through like an anger phase at them and I like hate them. And I don't
Yes.
talk to them about it. I just, you know, I'm like, F you. And then I'll like write a letter about how much I hate them and then burn it and be like, okay, I have to let this go now. But what do you think, Holly? What's your procedure with the grieving process?
With each person is different, and relationships of romance or friendships that we've talked about, they're all different. And people can hear you or they get really offended by something that you say, or you can't live in your truth. It's really hard to move on from that. But I do agree that anger is not a bad emotion but you don't want to stay stuck in that.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a great book called What Our Emotions Are Telling Us. I think what our emotions mean or something. Sorry, I wish I remembered the book title. But it's like that, and it does talk about the healthy versions of things versus like holding on to things. Like me holding bitterness and anger, like that's not helpful. Being angry at someone because they crossed my boundaries, there's a healthy anger, right? Is that what you mean?
Yes.
Yeah, forgiveness, right? Because holding on to those emotions is really just punishing yourself. We think that, we're punishing them. I don't even think we sometimes go that far as to we're punishing them, but until we can have that recognition that those emotions and those hurtful feelings towards that person is really just harming us and our growth, I think we can stay stuck as well.
But I think, okay, I think that the part where I get really angry at them is like usually well timed because that's the part where I need extra strong boundaries to not try to go back, right?
Yeah.
If I was in that situation where I really wanted to go back, I get super angry, like, no, F this guy, I'm not doing that, it sucks. And I don't tell him, but I feel all the anger and I'm like, good thing I feel angry. I'm gonna keep him away. I'm not fantasizing about what should have been. So for me, I'm like, this anger is good temporarily until. What do you think, Holly? Is that too much anger?
Great. I mean, what is too much? It depends on each relationship.
That's true.
Ask yourself, like, wait a minute, I'm hanging on to this way too long. I'm only thinking of the negative parts about this person instead of, wow, what did I learn from this person? What did I gain? What did they gain? And if you get into that and you can sit with yourself and be alone, and it's not easy to do. I remember one relationship, I wanted to get right back into my next
Yeah.
one. Didn't want to tolerate the boredom and the feeling alone and not having someone next to me. And I just ended up having more anxiety being around new people and trying to fill that gap.
And then the constant like gripping for like someone make me whole. But you know, I've been working with a somatic therapist, but as you know, I've done EMDR as well. And I have found that now I haven't been in a relationship for quite a while. And now I like can't even I used to desperately want a partner like literally my entire life. Like so bad.
I think
Um,
most of us do.
yeah. It's nice to have that companionship, but I don't. Recently, I've been like, I think through somatic therapy, I had to reset what a relationship looks like because I grew up on the Disney romantic rom-com
Mm.
stuff, and now I feel like I've been out long enough that it's almost like I don't really have a concept of my head of what a healthy relationship is because it wasn't really presented to me in my life growing up. And also, I lived out same chaotic relationships for so long that I'm like, what does it even look like? You know, like, what does it look like to start a relationship that's not like crazy fast whirlwind? You know, so that for me is, it's weird that I feel so differently. I've never felt like this in my life. I've been like, I don't know if I want a partner. They seem stressful.
Yeah, taking your time.
Oh, I can't hear you.
Oh,
There
I,
it is.
is that better?
Yeah, that's better.
Taking your time, just take your time after exit relationship, and also taking your time entering into a new relationship and really getting to know each other um, before entering into deep intimacy. Practicing in different types of intimacy is is helpful in setting that foundation so that you do have that in a friendship. And if it does end up being that you don't want the same things, you do have that to rely on if it does come to exiting the relationship.
And
Yeah,
people change of what they do want, and
Yeah,
as do we.
yeah.
yeah.
I thought
And it's allowed.
that it didn't come to fruition. So
What do you guys think about guys saying, later on in the relationship, like, you changed, and then us saying to the guys, you didn't change?
Yeah, that's really funny. I'm happy you point that out. That's very true. And in a way, in a that's interesting because if you think about kind of the female stereotype, like don't go into a relationship trying to change a man, and then a man like you changed, like oh yeah, the whole time I was trying to change you, I changed into someone that doesn't want to be with you.
yes,
Yes. Or a lot of times I think that women will date a man's potential.
That's
And
it. The potential.
yeah, instead of just seeing him for where he is and accepting him for where he is and asking yourself if in 5 years this is still where he is, would I still want to be with this person? And I think a lot
Yeah.
of times the answer is no, but we see so much potential in people. And I think that's also a gift that we have as women,
I do think so. Not all women.
Yeah.
I would say intuitive women and men.
Yeah, or just the feminine in general.
Yeah,
That is,
yeah.
feminine is good at seeing the good and the potential of what things could be in the future. And so I think it's really important to ask yourself, like, am I okay being with this person if they never change?
And are you able
Well, what's that, Holly?
to be yourself?
I think that's huge. And for me now too is really working on listening to my intuition instead of being like, ooh, look at these nice red flags. Let's go. Yeah. But yeah, it's such an interesting kind of concept. And how you pointed it out, Marissa, was beautiful.
Thanks. Thank you.
Hi, Zoe. Thanks for joining us.
Zoe, what about green flags? I know we like to talk about red flags a lot. You know,
That's a good point. I think sometimes we overdo it. Like,
totally.
you know what's funny? I was thinking. Oh, I'm sorry. I was thinking about this when I was just this morning getting ready. I was thinking about, for me, the ultimate compliment from a man would be to be like a queen, right?
Mm-hmm.
But for me, that can be misunderstood and taken as, and I know we're not talking about red flags, but taken as a red flag, especially some women and some men will think being a queen means that you do everything for me. You fill me, my emotions up. You do this for me. And I think for me now, a partner I want is whole. I don't need to treat them a certain way to feel okay. I mean, you want to be nice and don't be a jerk in a relationship, right? But like the other person is not 100% what is going to make my life happy. And I think that's really misunderstood society in general. These songs about needing people and the movies, the rom-coms, and these crazy gestures. Like, for some reason, people don't have cell phones in rom-coms, so they have to drive to the airport in the rain to catch this person before they leave. And, like, these things just don't happen, right?
Mm-hmm. It's Hollywood's version.
Yeah. Well, and it's all goes into, like, proving your love to somebody.
Okay, but if someone did that, I would be like, you psycho. Like, why didn't you just call me? Or why didn't you just, like, take the next flight? Like, that would be, like, so weird to me if someone showed up and did that. I'd be like, after, like, a week of knowing me, I'd be like, oh, boy.
Yeah, I just had a guy respond to me, calling me, barely talked to him for maybe 20 minutes on the phone. Babe, I'm like, wow, that's way too fast. And that's what I've been running into.
Yeah.
Is people that want too much too fast.
Yeah. So what like green flags for you guys? Like what do you require in a relationship to feel safe?
I didn't even address that. Sorry, we like went to the rabbit hole.
For
me, I would say you circle back. Thank you, Marissa, for refocusing me in this. For me, I would say the first thing is that it's more of me listening to my intuition, truthfully. The first thing I notice is if I feel really uncomfortable with them or the speed is stressful. I would say reliability. I think the biggest one, honestly, is stable and reliable. Are you going to be there when you say you are? Are you going to call when you say you are? Am I going to hold up my end? And also, like, can you communicate to me what you need? And not think, like, I had a boyfriend be like, well, you should just know. I'm like, what are you talking about? What do you think, I'm a mind reader?
Right.
You know, so. And then I guess the biggest green flag for me is what is this person actively doing to work on their spiritual growth?
Yeah.
That's actually, and then we're not like, oh my gosh, you changed. It's like, oh my gosh, we're taking this journey of growing spiritually together. And for me, like, a great partner would want to meditate, would want to get up at sunrise, would want to go, I mean, I surf, but any sort of nature, you know, would be great. That's for me. What are you doing for spiritual growth, essentially?
Yeah. And some people aren't in that place, and that's okay, because you don't want to have everything in common.
No, but I think spiritual growth is super important. But yeah, being the same person, you.
Yeah, how boring is that?
Yeah.
What about you, Marissa?
Yeah, I agree with you. I think it takes time to learn that the person means what they say,
Mm-hmm.
because I mean this kind of brings me to like love bombing. I kind of want to get into love bombing because
Do it.
newness of a relationship can be super exciting, and I think it's supposed to be. I think it's important to have, um, you know, feelings of intimacy with the person you're going to pursue a relationship with. And yeah, what about love bombing? How do you know if it's love bombing or not? And I think it's really taking the time to see that they mean what they say, that these gestures that they're showing you at the beginning last.
Yeah.
Because I've been, a few relationships where the beginning was everything I could have ever hoped and dreamed for, and they told me all the things that I wanted to hear. And then about 6 months into the relationship, I'm like, this is not it. Where do you go? And then I found myself staying because I was hanging on to that.
Hoping it would
Yeah,
come back. Yeah.
it's just he's going through something. It's gonna come back. He'll come back around, because that beginning was intense and so good. So I think really slowing things down, if they're willing to take the time because they know that you're worth taking the time for, and vice versa,
Mhm.
it's a green flag for me as well.
Yeah.
Oh, she cut out. You cut out first.
You know, it's windy here and the internet's not great. So I should probably hop off because it looks like I'm having to use my hotspot right now. So
Okay. Well,
before I freeze some more,
thanks for hopping on.
of course,
Hey, Rachel.
have a great day.
You
Bye.
too.